glands in their feathers to repel the water from their feathers, so that's how they dry out. That's called an anhinga. Now, because that bird's sitting there, I don't know if the female gator is going to want to come out or not. Okay, but inside of here, this whole area right here belongs to one big male alligator. Guys, let's do something to be fair to everybody. If you guys on this side don't mind, have a seat. You guys on that side, you guys can get up and stand up on the seats if you want, in case she pops her head out of the water, okay? I'm gonna attempt to do something. I'm gonna try to see if I can splash the water and try to get her, you know, to pique her curiosity. They have little sensors all along their mouth, and anytime you splash the water, they think it might be like a fish in distress or something like that. So, let's see. By doing that, I can get her to come out so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Anyways, this whole little area right here, belongs to one big male alligator. He's about 10 feet. And male alligators are extremely territorial. They'll pick a spot like this, they claim it as their house, and they do this for mating rights. So then mating season comes around, female shows up, they court each other, she gets pregnant. What she'll do then is, once she's pregnant, she'll start making a nest, just like you see right over here, between the branch that's sticking up like this, that's broken, and the other branch coming out this way. There's a big nest right there of vegetation. Underneath that vegetation is all mud. Okay, she has piled up the mud, and she puts the vegetation on top of it, okay? Once she's ready to lay the eggs, she'll go ahead and she'll get on top of the nest, she'll dig a hole, lay her eggs, cover the eggs up with mud and vegetation. The eggs incubate for 2 months, 61 days. But when she lays the eggs do not have a male or female chromosome. So in other words, the sex of the alligator is not determined yet. That happens in the last 2 weeks of incubation, and it happens by temperature, okay? This is how it works. You heard that? That's the male. So the male's got to be on that side over there somewhere. Alright, so they incubate for 61 days, okay? When she lays the eggs, they incubate for 61 days. Then the babies are born very small out of eggs, roughly about 4 or 5 inches long. They look like little golf balls, the eggs. And they grow on an average about a foot per year. And they grow for the first 6 years of their life, they grow a foot per year. So at the age of 6, that growth rate changes drastically. It goes from a foot to about an eighth or a 16th of an inch. The older they get, the less the growth rate. I mean, if they kept growing a foot per year, we'd have dinosaurs out here, you know? But it has to change drastically. And then normally they stay with the mother for the first 2 years of life. That gives them a better chance of survival. Once they reach the age of 2 or 2 feet long, at that point they will take off and reverse the cycle of life. Everything they used to eat them as babies, they will now begin to eat. And that's how the life of an alligator begins. So let me explain this to you guys here. When she first lays the eggs do not have a male or female chromosome. In other words, the sex of the alligator is not determined yet. That happens in the last 2 weeks of incubation, and it happens by temperature. Oh, guys, my wife is about to give birth and anything, but it is not her, so. Got it. Alright.
So if it's male or it's...
No, this is how it works. This is the nest right here. Just like you see right there, right?
Yeah.
It's a big pile of mud and vegetation, right?
Yeah.
The very bottom of the nest, the temperature is going to average between 82 to 87 degrees Fahrenheit. Females are born at that particular temperature. In the middle of the mound, between 88 to 90 degrees, is 2 degrees difference. It could be male or female.
So
At the very...
the
hotter it is, exactly, the cooler it is, it's going to be females, warmer it is, it's going to be males. But it can be equal parts of both, you know? So at the very top of the nest, between 91 to 94 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to be males. So usually females are born at the bottom, in the middle it could be male, female, or in the top it's going to be all males, okay? And that's how it works for these guys. And like I said, once they're born, they grow about a foot per year. They stay with mom for the first 2 years of life because of a better chance of survival. And once they reach the age of 2, that is when they will take off and reverse the cycle of life. Everything they used to eat then, they will now begin to eat. Okay? That's how the life of an alligator begins. Now, I wish it would come out, and I'm trying to kill as much time as I can, because to see a female in the wild nesting is almost next to impossible, because 2 things will happen. One, they'll either abandon the nest, which she has not done because she's been mating now for 4 years with the same male, which is also very rare. And also 2, if the babies have already been born, which they have not, because otherwise, you know, you'd see them swimming around, or she'd be on top of the nest, you know, waiting for the babies to hatch and help them, you know, come out of the nest. So she's about ready to go ahead and dig that hole and lay those eggs pretty soon, anytime now. So basically, you know, it's like I said, it's very difficult to see a female in the wild for those reasons, because you know, once they see you, they will either take off or they, you know, they'll abandon the nest, or they will, or they'll move those babies and you'll never find them again. You know. So I'm hoping she at least pops her head out. You know.
Are the cycles of their lives determined by the weather? When it's when it's summer, then
right. There's years that we get cooler summers or warmer summers. You know, it could be more females than males. You know, you're always gonna have both males and females in every nest.
Does she lay her eggs about the same time in the year?
Always the same time of the year.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's only once a year. Okay, and mating season started. We're in. What are we in right now? July, right? It's the beginning of July 11th, right?
Yeah.
So it started in April, and it ends more or less around the end of this month, you know. So that's why she's about to lay the eggs anytime now, you know. And then those babies will be born 61 days after that. Okay. Now, let's see what happens. I don't know if she's gonna come out or not. So now you guys can all stand up. I don't know if she's gonna come out or not. So let's talk a little bit about the Everglades and how the Everglades works. How deep do you guys think this water is here?
3 feet.
3 feet? I wish it was that deep. We're probably sitting in about 8 or 10 inches of water. Okay? And the reason for that, let me explain to you guys why. This is not normal, it's not natural that it's so shallow out here on this side of the park. But the reason that this happens is because the same road that brought you guys out here to the park, Tamiami Trail, was built in the 1930s. It connects Miami to Naples, but it also breaks the river in half and does not allow the water to flow naturally. That's why when you guys entered that road, you guys went over an overpass or a bridge that wasn't too high above the water, and it's about 2 miles long. That's part of a $90 million restoration program that they're doing out here in the Everglades to restore the flow of the water so that we don't go through droughts anymore. 7 months ago, we had no water out here whatsoever. You literally could walk from the park all the way down to the Florida Bay, which is another 90 miles from here, and you would not even touch a quarter-inch of water. Okay?
How the
All due to
animals
that
were
road.
living?
How do they survive? What happens is when the water starts to get shallow, they start to go into all those canals, and all the canals here in Florida are all interconnected. That's our levee system, because what happens is Florida's at sea level. When it rains too much, all that rainwater goes into those canals. All those canals lead out here to the Everglades, and then the Everglades empties it out into the Florida Bay. Okay? Because this water goes from fresh water and it empties out into salt water. So the Everglades actually begins 100 miles north of that road at Lake Okeechobee, which releases the water into the Everglades. Okay? Sir, don't do that anymore, because you don't even know she could be underwater there, and last thing I want is for you to lose your hand, okay? She could be right there, you don't even know, because you can't even see the water. So what happens is the Everglades begins 100 miles north of that road, south of Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee releases water into the Everglades. The Everglades flows about 1 mile every 24 hours, emptying out into the Florida Bay. But like I said, because of that road, it breaks the river in half and doesn't allow the amount of water that should flow to this side, and that's why we go through droughts on this side of the park.
Will there be any more bridges?
Yes, that's the first bridge. They're going to build 2 more bridges just like that. One's going to be 1 mile past the bridge. The other one's going to be 10 miles past that bridge, and that's going to allow the water to flow naturally. We should not go through those droughts anymore, and that should be like another 6 or 7 years until they're completely done with those 2 bridges. Okay. Now, with that being said, when the Indians lived out here, the Mekasukis, whenever the Everglades would dry up on this side of the park and they had no water to boil to be able to drink, they had to figure out another way of staying hydrated. And the way that they figured it out was by observing the animals, okay? This grass right here that I picked, this is called sawgrass. This grass grows in 80% of the Everglades. This white part right here, this is the root to the plant. The root acts like a filter. Whenever the Everglades starts to dry up, this will suck the water in and it'll store it in there. When there's no water out here, this becomes exposed, so all the animals will chew on the root and extract the water out of it, and that's how they survive. 3, 4, 5 months no rain or water. So the Indians, when they had no water to boil, they did the same thing too. They would pull the root out, they would chew on this day and night, 24/7 for 4 or 5 months, and this is how they would stay hydrated, okay? So this is very important for them. I'm going to pass it around and show you guys why it's called sawgrass, but I'm going to ask you all, when you are done, please do not leave it in my boat. Throw it overboard, otherwise it's going to clog my bilge pumps back there and we can end up taking Okay? If you run your fingers up like this, you will not feel the serration. You run your fingers backwards, you see that? Extremely sharp. That's why this is called sawgrass, okay? So be very careful when you guys pass it around. This is, like I said, probably one of the most important pieces of vegetation for both the Indians and the animal survival. Here you go. And guys, I really don't suggest that you chew on it because